We begin our journey by honoring Amos Tversky, a brilliant mind whose partnership with Daniel Kahneman revolutionized our understanding of how people think and decide. Their collaboration was not just productive but also joyful, filled with lively debates and mutual respect. Together, they explored the quirks of human intuition, uncovering patterns in the mistakes we make. Their work laid the foundation for what would become the study of heuristics and biases, changing the way we view judgment and decision-making. This story is as much about friendship and curiosity as it is about science. Why do we need a richer language for judgment and choice? Kahneman hopes to enrich everyday conversations at the office water cooler or in discussions about decisions by providing precise terms for the errors and patterns we all encounter. Recognizing biases in others is easier and more enjoyable than spotting them in ourselves, but learning to do both can improve our decision-making. This book aims to help us diagnose and understand these errors so we can limit the damage they cause and make better choices both individually and collectively. Just as doctors use labels to diagnose diseases, we need labels to identify patterns in judgment and decision-making. Systematic errors known as biases recur in predictable ways. For example, the halo effect leads us to judge confident speakers more favorably than they deserve. Having a name for these biases makes it easier to spot and understand them. By expanding our vocabulary, we can better anticipate and discuss the mistakes we and others make, leading to more informed and thoughtful conversations. Most of the time, our thoughts and impressions arise effortlessly without us knowing how they got there. We can't always trace the origins of our beliefs or intuitions. The mental work that produces these impressions often happens silently beneath our conscious awareness. While we like to think our minds work in an orderly, logical way, much of our thinking is automatic and intuitive. This book explores the strengths and weaknesses of intuition, showing that while it often serves us well, it can also lead us astray. Journey began in 1969, when Kahneman invited Tversky to speak at a seminar. Their lively debate about whether people are good intuitive statisticians led to collaboration that would last 14 years. They discovered that even experts, including statisticians, often misjudge probabilities and rely on intuition rather than evidence. Their research showed that biases are not just the domain of the untrained. Even those who teach statistics are prone to systematic error. This realization set the stage for their groundbreaking work. Consider this scenario. Steve is described as shy, withdrawn, and detail-oriented. Is he more likely to be a librarian or a farmer? Most people choose librarian, ignoring the fact that there are far more male farmers than librarians. This example illustrates how we rely on resemblance, a heuristic, to make judgments, often at the expense of relevant statistical information. Such shortcuts can lead to predictable biases in our thinking, highlighting the need to be aware of how we form judgment. And asked about the rate of divorce among professors, people tend to recall examples from memory. The ease with which instances come to mind influences our judgment, a phenomenon called the availability heuristic. For example, we overestimate the frequency of words that start with K because they are easier to recall, even though K is more common as the third letter. This heuristic explains why dramatic events dominate our perceptions and why media coverage shapes public opinion. Kahneman and Tversky's research documented over 20 biases, showing that intuitive thinking relies on simplifying shortcuts, heuristics that can lead to systematic errors. Their work challenged the prevailing view that people are generally rational and that emotions are the main source of error. Instead, they showed that the very design of our cognitive machinery leads to predictable mistakes, influencing fields from medicine to finance and beyond. Concepts of heuristics and biases have influenced many disciplines, including policy, law, intelligence analysis, and economics. For example, the availability heuristic helps explain why some issues receive more public attention than others. Media coverage makes certain topics more salient, shaping both public opinion and policy. This widespread impact underscores the importance of understanding how our minds work, not just for individuals but for society as a whole. One reason Kahneman and Tversky's work resonated so widely is that they included the full text of their questions in their articles. This allowed readers to experience their own biases firsthand, making the research more relatable and memorable. By seeing ourselves fall into cognitive traps, we become more open to questioning the assumption that the human mind is always rational and logical. For their work on judgment, Kahneman and Tversky turned to decision-making under uncertainty. They explored how people make choices about simple gambles, such as betting on a coin toss. Their research revealed that intuitive preferences often violate the rules of rational choice, leading to the development of prospect theory, a cornerstone of behavioral economics. This theory explains why people value gains and losses differently, shaping real-world decisions. Kahneman and Tversky's collaboration was marked by a unique synergy. They complemented each other's strengths, one more logical, the other more intuitive, and their partnership produced work that neither could have achieved alone. Their shared curiosity and willingness to challenge each other's ideas led to insights that have shaped the field of psychology and beyond. While much of their early work focused on biases, recent research has revealed the marvels of intuition as well. Expert intuition, developed through years of practice, allows professionals like firefighters or chess masters to make rapid, accurate judgments. These skills are based on recognition, seeing familiar patterns in new situations. However, not all intuitions are reliable. Some arise from emotion or superficial cues rather than true expertise. Emotions play a larger role in our judgments than previously thought. The effect heuristic describes how feelings of liking or disliking can guide decisions with little deliberation. For example, an executive might invest in a company simply because he likes its products, without considering whether the stock is a good value. This shortcut can lead to decisions that feel right but lack rational basis. When faced with a difficult question, our minds often substitute an easier one without realizing it. For instance, instead of asking, "Should I invest in this stock?" we might unconsciously answer, "Do I like this company?" This substitution is at the heart of intuitive heuristics and explains why we sometimes make decisions that don't align with our goals or the available evidence. Kahneman introduces the metaphor of two systems: System 1, which is fast, automatic, and intuitive, and System 2, which is slow, deliberate, and effortful. System 1 handles most of our daily tasks, generating impressions and feelings that guide our beliefs and actions. System 2 steps in when we need to focus, solve complex problems, or override automatic responses. Understanding the interplay between these systems is key to understanding how we think. System 1 operates automatically and quickly with little or no effort. It detects distances, orients to sudden sounds, completes familiar phrases, and recognizes emotions in faces. These abilities are either innate or acquired through practice. System 1 is always running in the background, shaping our perceptions and reactions without conscious effort. System 2 is responsible for effortful mental activities, such as solving complex problems, making deliberate choices, and following rules. It requires attention and is easily disrupted when attention is diverted. System 2 can override System 1's impulses, but it is slower and more resource-intensive. We rely on System 2 when we need to focus, reason logically, or control our behavior. Capacity for attention is limited. When we focus intensely on one task, we may become blind to other stimuli, even obvious ones. The famous invisible gorilla experiment shows that people can miss a person in a gorilla suit if they are busy counting basketball passes. This illustrates that we can be blind to the obvious and unaware of our own blindness, highlighting the importance of attention management. System 1 and System 2 are both active when we're awake. System 1 generates suggestions, impressions, intuitions, intentions that System 2 can endorse or override. Most of the time, System 2 adopts System 1's suggestions with little modification. However, when System 1 encounters difficulty or surprise, System 2 is mobilized to provide more detailed processing and problem solving. While System 1 is efficient and usually accurate, it is prone to systematic errors or biases. It sometimes answers easier questions than the one asked and struggles with logic and statistics. Importantly, System 1 cannot be turned off. Its automatic responses are always present, even when we know they might be misleading. Sometimes, System 1 and System 2 come into conflict. For example, when reading words in a different color than their meaning, it takes effort to override the automatic response to read the word rather than name the color. This conflict requires self-control and highlights the struggle between our automatic impulses and deliberate intentions. Just as we can be fooled by visual illusions, we are susceptible to cognitive illusions, systematic errors in thinking. For example, the Mueller-Lyer illusion makes two equal lines appear different in length. Even when we know the truth, our perception doesn't change. Similarly, cognitive illusions persist even when we're aware of them, requiring effortful monitoring to avoid mistakes. Because System 1 operates automatically, errors are often difficult to prevent. The best strategy is to learn to recognize situations where mistakes are likely and to engage System 2 when the stakes are high. Continuous vigilance is impractical, but targeted effort can help us avoid significant errors in judgment and decision-making. Kahneman uses the term System 1 and System 2 as convenient labels for different modes of thinking, not as literal systems in the brain. These characters help us understand and discuss the complexities of mental life. By personifying these processes, we make it easier to grasp how our minds work and why we sometimes make mistakes. System 2's defining feature is effort. It is lazy by nature, reluctant to invest more energy than necessary. Most of the time, System 2 is content to let System 1 take the lead, but it is essential for tasks that require self-control, discipline, and deliberate thought. The law of least effort governs both physical and mental activities, driving us to seek the easiest path. Research shows that mental effort can be measured physically, for example, by changes in pupil size. Tasks like mental arithmetic or memory exercises cause pupils to dilate, reflecting the strain of cognitive work. As we become more skilled, tasks require less effort and our brains become more efficient. This physical evidence underscores the real cost of attention and effort. People naturally gravitate toward the least demanding way of achieving their goals. Whether it's physical or mental work, effort is a cost we try to minimize. This principle explains why we often rely on intuition and shortcuts, even when more careful thinking would yield better results. Skill and talent reduce the effort required, making complex tasks feel easier over time. System 2 is overloaded. Our ability to process information and control impulses diminishes. For example, judges are more likely to deny parole when they're tired or hungry, defaulting to the easiest option. This phenomenon, known as ego depletion, shows that self-control and cognitive effort draw from a shared pool of mental energy, which can be depleted by stress, fatigue, or multitasking. System 2 often accepts the first answer that comes to mind, especially if it seems plausible. For example, the classic bat and ball problem tempts us with an intuitive but incorrect answer. Over 50% of students at top universities fall for this trap, showing that even intelligent people can be lazy thinkers. Active engagement and skepticism are needed to avoid such mistakes. Research shows that self-control and rational thinking are linked but distinct from intelligence. Experiments with children and adults reveal that those who can delay gratification and control their attention perform better on cognitive tasks and in life. Rationality, or the willingness to engage System 2, is a better predictor of sound judgment than intelligence alone. System 1 operates through associative activation. Ideas trigger related ideas in a cascade. For example, seeing the words bananas and vomit together creates a vivid, automatic response, linking memories, emotions, and even physical reactions. This process is fast, effortless, and often outside our conscious awareness, shaping how we interpret the world. Priming occurs when exposure to one idea influences our response to related ideas. For instance, thinking about eat makes us more likely to recognize soup. Priming affects not just thoughts but also actions and emotions, often without our awareness. These subtle influences can shape our behavior in surprising ways, from walking speed to generosity. Ideomotor effect describes how ideas can trigger physical actions without conscious intent. For example, students primed with words related to old age walked more slowly afterward. Similarly, holding a pencil in a way that mimics a smile can actually make us feel happier. These findings reveal the deep connections between mind and body and how easily our behavior can be influenced. Priming effects extend into daily decisions such as voting or helping others. For example, people are more likely to support school funding if they vote in a school building. Reminders of money make people more self-reliant but less helpful. Even subtle cues like images of eyes can increase honesty. These findings challenge our belief in conscious control over our choices. Our minds use metaphors and symbols in unconscious associations. For example, people who recall unethical acts are more likely to desire cleansing products, a phenomenon dubbed the Lady Macbeth effect. The urge to cleanse is specific to the body part involved in the sin, showing how deeply our thoughts and actions are intertwined. Many people are skeptical of priming effects, believing they are immune to such influences. However, research shows that these effects are robust and apply to everyone, even if we are unaware of them. Our subjective experience is shaped by the story System 2 tells, but much of our behavior is guided by unconscious processes in System 1. System 1 is the source of many of our rapid intuitive judgments, but it is also responsible for systematic errors. Its automatic processes link the present with the past and future, evaluate events, and generate beliefs and impulses. While these abilities are often accurate, they can also lead us into cognitive traps, especially when we are unaware of their influence. Throughout the book, Kahneman uses phrases like System 1 constructed a story or System 2 took control. These shorthand expressions help us discuss complex mental processes in a relatable way. By thinking of our minds as having two characters, we can better understand and manage our own thinking patterns. The book is divided into 5 parts: 2 systems, heuristics and biases, overconfidence, choices, and 2 selves. Each part explores a different aspect of how we think, judge, and decide. From the automatic operations of System 1 to the distinction between the experiencing and remembering selves, the book provides a comprehensive framework for understanding the mind. Part I introduces the basic elements of the 2 systems approach. It explains how System 1 constructs a coherent interpretation of the world and how System 2 provides deliberate control. This section lays the groundwork for understanding the complexity and richness of intuitive thinking, as well as the language we use to discuss the mind. Part II delves into judgment heuristics and the challenges of thinking statistically. It explores why we find it so difficult to think in terms of probabilities and statistics, and how this limitation leads to predictable errors. The section highlights the importance of recognizing these biases in ourselves and others. Part III addresses the puzzling limitation of overconfidence. We tend to overestimate what we know and underestimate uncertainty. This section explores how hindsight and the illusion of certainty feed our overconfidence, and how we can learn to recognize and mitigate these tendencies. Part IV engages with economics, examining how human choices deviate from rationality. It introduces prospect theory and discusses framing effects, showing how decisions are shaped by context and presentation. This section challenges the assumption of rational agents in standard economics, offering a more nuanced view of decision-making. Part V introduces the distinction between the experiencing self and the remembering self. These two selves have different interests and can lead to conflicting choices, especially in the pursuit of happiness. The section explores how memories are formed, how they influence future decisions, and what this means for individual and societal well-being.